The live button is on. Welcome to House of Champions. Use your friends, dropping your comments and questions in the chat, and make sure you hammer that like and subscribe buttons as we preview the action ahead of this weekend's top fixtures all across Europe's top divisions. In the house today, Nigel Real Coker's got a strange look on his face. What's up, mate? What's up with you? What's up with your face? No? You good?
Puzzled.
All right.
I'm ready to go.
Just making sure you're okay there. How you doing, Michael Hood?
I'm doing really, really well because of a certain game, certain score line from yesterday, Coupe de France. I'm looking at you, JJ.
JJ, respond to that. I mean, don't just let him go.
No, I mean, yeah, honestly, can't have any arguments about the result last night. But every dog has to have their day. What was that? The first time since like 2011? I mean,
yeah,
it's going to happen at some point.
Listen, I'm a little bit confused because Michael Lahoud, who's a Manchester United fan, has a Leeds United scarf hanging behind his head right now.
I can explain. I can explain. I've been taking crap for this behind the scenes. I can explain. My dad is a Leeds fan. And on my wedding day, he surprised all of us by giving my wife a Leeds scarf to welcome her to the family. Not a United scarf, as discussed, a Leeds scarf. So my missus put the scarf up.
All right, we like that one. That's about the fifth time you've had to explain yourself about that scarf, and we've had 5 different explanations, but thank you very much for that one. We do have a couple of comments coming in real quickly before we get into the show here. NYCFC Songs asking about the show. Shout out to NYCFC fans all around as well, but we're obviously on different time zones. We try to do early in the morning as much as we possibly can. Check out for our listens and follow on our social media platforms. Twitter, very active on there, House of Champions, so make sure you follow along for the latest showings. And then, JJ, I'm coming to you real quickly because Blah Blah just jumped in and said, I'm not a fan of OM or PSG, but that was not a penalty. Explain.
I mean, honestly, I had a lot of people asking me about this yesterday. That's the penalty given against Sergio Ramos. I mean, I can understand people sort of debating the actual incident itself, but really, honestly, a defender of Ramos's experience, you don't get yourself into a position like that. You can't, and I think that, for that alone, you're asking for the penalty to be given, unfortunately, from a PSG perspective. Obviously, for Mike, he was absolutely delighted with it. But to be honest, I don't think Marseille even needed, to score a penalty, given the amount of chances they created. They really should have been at least like 3 or 4-0 up by halftime.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
very interesting what's happening right now in French football. We'll touch on that a little bit later on in the show. Let's get into what happened yesterday because Nigel's completely bored right now as we talk about French football. We get back to the Premier League. It was Leeds against Manchester United yesterday. A quick reaction from all of you. Nigel, this was a bit of a surprise result for me. Certainly a surprise reaction from Leeds United. They played very well in the first half. I actually thought the whole game they were decent and showed great attitude, and they made it an interesting game. Manchester United not at their best in the first 45 minutes, but they made it a cracking game to watch in the second half. What was your overall thoughts on the performance from both teams in the game overall?
Overall, I think Leeds were fantastic, if I'm honest. I think Leeds, for me, in that performance alone, give me a glimmer of hope that they could actually maybe survive and stay in the Premier League if they can get the right manager. It's a reaction performance, obviously, with Jesse Marsch not being there anymore, and I'm sure Jesse would have been frustrated watching that kind of performance while he's not in charge, because that's the kind of performance that he wants from his players. So it's a difficult situation again. Manchester United, for me, didn't start well, yes, but you can't take nothing away from Leeds' performance. They really were front foot, high tempo, winning the ball back high up the pitch, and they look like the Leeds of old. And I think they're lacking that finishing touch, that goal-scoring ability is still something that's a bit of a worry for them. Manchester United, for me, again, now are showing how heavily reliant and how important Casemiro and Christian Eriksen is. That's what I saw in that performance. Casemiro and Christian Eriksen are so important to this Manchester United side if they're going to compete for try and win the Champions, if they're going to compete to try and finish in the top 4 or even win the Premier League title. They were a big miss yesterday.
I agree with you, Nigel. I was really impressed with Leeds. And when you start away from home, when you go to Old Trafford, which has become a difficult place to play for a lot of Premier League teams, as we've seen this season, and it gives you an uptick in confidence. And Noto, he was incredible. We've seen him be a spark for Leeds under Jesse Marsch, but it's that finishing touch that's been missing. Yes, goal just lit up the field for them. And the way they swarmed, and you said it best in pressing up the field, both goals came off of winning the ball back high up the field and then getting in the box and having more definition to their attack. Where it went wrong is you start seeing the lack of depth. This is a Leeds team that put a lot of energy out. A lot of young players covered a lot of ground. They were missing that next goal. to get United and put him in the sword, or put the sword in them, but it wasn't there. And credit to Ten Hag for making subs. Subs, you're brought in to bring more energy, to lift the team up. And Pellistri and Jadon Sancho getting the goal, but Pellistri, the way he fought for that first ball, it wasn't the best ball from Sabitzer, but he kept the play alive. Dalot with the cross. Early crosses got United back in the game, and United were fortunate to get the draw in the end.
Yeah, I mean, I think sort of going on and building from what Mike had said, I agree as well. I think it was no surprise or no real shock that once United got one just after the hour mark, they got the second. I think that's when Leeds started to sort of fall away a bit. I see there's been reports today that Iraola won't be taking over Leeds, and I think when you change manager, there's always going to be that new burst of energy, players applying themselves that perhaps not doing it so in a way that they were with the previous coach, because everyone's out to try and impress. The cards have been reshuffled, so to speak, and they'll be wanting to catch the eye of whoever might come in and replace Jesse Marsch. But I think that there are some very, very talented players in this Leeds side. Every time I see Gnonto, he really, really looks like a I mean, I think he was only picked up for a couple of million as well, an absolute bargain, by Leeds when they got hold of him. And I think there is definitely some potential there for whoever comes in, and takes over. I don't think that Leeds' current position in the table necessarily reflects the talent that they actually have assembled in that squad.
Yeah, great comments coming in right now. You see Thomas Lumota here. Hello from Finland. Hi to Finland. Leeds really putting up a fight without a manager and losing a few players in the first half. Just a pity they couldn't hold out for the win. BX Gunner 81 saying, I see Leeds United staying up. Also adding early on that the American midfielders showed up there. We also have Vic jumping in and saying Casemiro is everything for Manchester United, agreeing with Nigel here. What a difference in that midfield without him. And then Pritik saying the 2 goals of Leeds United saved if Casemiro played yesterday, ? Let's go into it. They play once again this weekend, Nigel. It's kind of strange, really, isn't it? 2 games back to back in the Premier League. This whole year, really, when you look at the schedule, it's absolutely messed up. But have you ever been in a situation like that, where you've actually played a team and then maybe in a cup game and then gone straight into a league? I don't think I've remembered seeing back-to-back Premier League games like this.
I think I have actually. I've been involved in something like that. I think it was whether if it was Manchester United or Manchester City, and then there was a debate of whether we had to travel back or just stay up there. But I've been involved in that scenario before in my career, and yeah, it's interesting. But again, what people have to understand when they listen to this pod, there is tremendous history there between Manchester United and Leeds. There's a great rivalry there that goes way back, and it's going to be passionate. And there's already reports coming out from Bruno Fernandes about he's not going to be intimidated by the atmosphere he's going to face when he goes to Ellen Road. So I think for me, it was a great game to watch yesterday. And again, yes, great shout out to the American players. I thought Weston McKennie was fantastic. And what I loved about him in his Premier League debut was he had a little bit of a handbag situation with Luke Shaw. And he stood his ground well and wasn't intimidated, but he also played well. He played well. And I think that...
You don't want the smoke. That's what he said. You don't want the smoke.
Yeah. He could do it in this generation, but in our generation, maybe not, because we'll give him that smoke.
Red card. NRC, red card.
I'll see you in the tunnel. I'll see you in the tunnel.
No tunnel. I'll give it to you on the pitch right there, and then you'll know. No, he played fantastically well. I think it was a bit of a wake-up call for them to understand the quality level of the Premier League. You're 2-0 up. And really and truly, you should have been able to see in that game, but it's again a lack of experience and the lack of know-how. And again, we talk about Casemiro. I think Casemiro would have made a difference because Casemiro and Eriksen set the tempo. They go and get the ball off the defense. They're able to make those penetrative passes. They're able to control the flow of the midfield. Midfielders like Casemiro, Partey, and some of these midfielders, Gimaresh, that we marvel at in the Premier League, and even Joe Linton now to a certain degree, they don't come around like that. There's an extra bit of element that comes into knowing the game, and it's great football intelligence, a willingness to let that game, the game go through them. They have that knowledge to uplift their teammates, and we're going to be in for a cracking game again this weekend. I think the atmosphere at Ellen Road is going to be sensational.
Yeah, I think that's well said, Nigel. And I also on the wide play of United, it was wide play that got them back in the game, and I thought Garnacho was very disappointing. Let's not forget, although Garnacho had 2 or 3 golden opportunities, he looked like a player who wasn't up to speed. So I expect Jadon Sancho to be back in the 11, and maybe this is the time that his career at United gets resuscitated to take flight.
JJ, quickly, give me your prediction.
one of the most interesting things to come out of that game was Sancho getting back on the score sheet, his celebration as well, pointing at his head. So I'm keen to see if he can play a role for United between now and the end of the season. But for me, looking at how this game might pan out, you know what? I feel like it could be another draw, actually. I'm going to go for a score draw. I'm going to say 1-1.
Nigel?
I'm going to go for Man United win 2-1.
I'm going 1-0 United.
All right, blah blah.
Which United?
Yeah, which
see what I did? See what I did there?
One
See what I did there? Yeah, Manchester United, of course. Don't let the scarf.
Man United 2-1 at Leeds on Sunday, saying blah blah right there in the chats as well. We appreciate you. Thanks for all the comments, everybody out there. Let's turn our attention to the Merseyside derby. It's Liverpool against Everton. LFC recently embarrassed JJ by Wolves once again. I mean, spanked. The goals continue to go in against Jurgen Klopp's side. It almost to me seems like Jurgen Klopp is a little bit lost right now as to how he handles this situation. Many people have actually said to me personally, and sometimes on shows, they've actually said that Jurgen Klopp doesn't know how to handle this situation, that he sort of lost his head and lost his enthusiasm. Where's your thoughts in the process as to where Jurgen Klopp is here as he goes into a derby game where Everton looks somewhat rejuvenated under Dyche after one game?
Yeah, this one is really, really interesting coming into this weekend, because if there's a game that Liverpool don't want to be going into right now, it's against Everton with a new manager bounce. I think they've already shown against Arsenal that they're capable of upsetting some of the bigger sides, and Liverpool are far from being in good form at this moment in time. I think I said in the show the other day, it is crazy how history repeats itself, with Klopp, and he struggles when he gets to this sort of part of a project. Honestly, what I think we're seeing right now is probably, without wanting to over exaggerate, probably the beginning of the end. Whether or not that end comes at the end of this season or perhaps at some point during next season, I think we're closer to the end between Jurgen Klopp and Liverpool than we think. I don't think it makes him a bad manager. Of course not. It's just there is sort of like this natural period of time for certain projects, and it feels like Klopps generally tend to run their course around this time. But I would also add there, I don't think it's just down to sort of Klopp, his relationship with the players. I think it reflects on Liverpool, the club as well, that, they've kind of gotten complacent in the last couple of years, took their eye off the ball in terms of recruitment. They haven't built the kind of squad that Klopp needed in order to keep that momentum going. And now there are, major wholesale changes needed, both, on and off the pitch. So it really wouldn't surprise me if there perhaps comes a moment in reflection where Klopp feels like he's given everything to try and turn this around. It's not working. And maybe, the club and the manager are better off going their separate ways at the end of the season.
Two places on the field that I had concerns about going into the season. One of them, and I said it before the season started, the midfield. Not enough recruitment done, not enough change, not enough life put into this midfield to make a spark in this season. And you're seeing how depleted they are. In the last couple of games, their backline has given up and their team has given up 11 goals since the start of the new year. That is not what's made Liverpool successful. They shored up themselves defensively over the last couple of seasons. And yes, the goals went in offensively. It's not happening for them. I expect changes to be made. Ibrahim Konate not being part of the team, Virgil van Dijk gets a lot of the praise and a lot of the focus, but Konate being out as well, you feel that loss. Matip and Gomez, that's not it. I expect a change at center back. Could it be Nat Phillips coming back in and getting a start? I think this is a good game for him. Young players, they will be chomping at the bit. We were all young players at one point. You get thrown into a Merseyside derby. This is a game that he could really be a spark plug for them. And up top, Mohamed Salah looks in trouble. He looks like he's not enjoying his football anymore. It's because he's not getting the support. Darwin Nunez, it's just been a wash for him. And Cody Gakpo, I don't think he was the right player Liverpool should have gotten. Yes, he had a good World Cup, but he's not looking up to the billing so far.
I just think for me, I'll make it very short and sharp because Michael and John have done a fantastic job in everything that I probably would have said. I disagree with Michael to a slight degree. I think they've made recruitments as they've been expected, but the recruitments just haven't been good enough. I agree with Jonathan. I think that Jurgen Klopp is that type of manager where his messaging, his energy can stay in players for a certain amount of years. And then after that, the same energy, the same messaging becomes white noise. This is the worst game for Liverpool. You're seeing a resurgent Everton side who are going to be very physical. They're going to make it very uncomfortable. I think it's going to be another classic old school Merseyside derby. Tackles flying in, everything's going to come flying in. And what we haven't seen from Liverpool for the past couple of games is that fight and desire. I see an Everton win just because of that. They're going to make it uncomfortable for them.
Wow.
And I agree with Jonathan, where I feel it's the point where you've got to see it now that Jurgen Klopp's time at Liverpool's come to an end. He's done tremendous at the club, but the messaging is becoming like white noise to these players now. And you can see as well in reflection in some of these players' performances, it's time to move on.
Shout out to Tom Marcanen out there. Big up to everybody in the house. BX Gunner Salah looks like Aubameyang after signing. He looks useless right now. B. Morton. Salah is a step up also. Man also looks like he's a bit hurt, to be fair. And then Tomas jumping in and saying, are Liverpool the new vibes team who only plays when they feel like it? Score prediction from Nigel is an Everton win. JJ, where are you going on an ML follow?
You know what? I'm tempted by that as well. I'm going to say Everton's win by a goal.
Ooh.
Michael, you're saying, like you've seen Liverpool perform well recently. They have been a shadow of themselves. Like, come on.
I know, but I'm not there just yet. I'm going 1-1 draw. I'm not there just yet. It's a Merseyside derby. Come on.
Okay, Ian, we've worked it out. Blah, blah is Michael's missus on her burner phone supporting Michael telling him what to do.
Blah, blah jumping in as well, saying Everton, Liverpool 1-1 draw. I'm actually going for Liverpool winning this game here. I don't see it. Dice ball was fun in the first game, but it's over now. Let's turn our attention to the game on Sunday. It's Manchester City against Villa. Mike, I'll come to you first here. What is the effect of, obviously, the FFP issues for Manchester City going into a game like this? Where are the players' mindsets also going into a big game like this? I mean, this is a massive game. Villa could cause some problems. City clearly favourites in this game. But will there be an after effect for Pep Guardiola, his mentality, his coaches, and also his players from what's been happening in the news recently?
I think there's more of effect what's happening on the field more than off the field. We've seen this happen with City before when they were under the cosh with financial fair play. Was it back in 2020? And they performed, got to the Champions League final. Didn't affect them at all in domestic and European competition. I expect them to respond in this game and on the field. Villa will put up a fight, though.
Okay, thanks for that. That was very quick, Mike.
I'm surprised. Michael hasn't got much to say. Wow, let me jump in quickly.
Go ahead, JJ. No, mate. I said my piece.
Go on, JJ. Wow.
Oh, I mean, I'm happy to step aside for Nigel if you want, but no, if I'm going on this, I actually, as a Villa fan, I feel more confident coming into the games against the bigger teams at the moment. I feel like that really has Emery in his element, in that kind of underdog role. Disappointing last weekend against Leicester. I don't think Villa actually played that badly, but I would say that. I felt they merited a bit more from that game than the defeat that we ended up with. But there is quite clearly a work in progress going on with Villa under Emery at the moment, and it just feels like they're able to sort of perform at the kind of level that Emery needs them to when they come up against some of these bigger sides. So I suspect Villa could, make this, tighter than expected, maybe lose by just a goal or perhaps even pull off a draw.
Yeah, I think Villa could make this tight. I agree. I think Villa could make this very tight. Could be a draw. They didn't really give a real performance of themselves against Leicester. I think, again, sometimes it's when you get a bit complacent. You think you're facing Leicester, relegation battle team. You let your levels drop slightly. But playing Manchester City, I think it's going to be a different thing. I think there's going to be a lot of attention on this game because of the outside situation. I personally feel, Ian, I really don't think that the players care or so much the management side really care. Let's be real about it. The days of players playing for these clubs, coming through the academy system and being a fan is not as kind of notable as it was in our generation. There was a deeper connection with players. Now there isn't. I think there's a lot of City players who are probably sitting there thinking, all right, where can I go next? Speaking to their agents, because it's nothing that they could control or had any kind of dealing with. It's beyond their control. So I don't think it's going to affect them sense. I think if anything affects them on the football pitch, it's going to be the relationships with Pep Guardiola. We have to really be honest about that. There's a lot still going on at City. I think there's a lot behind closed doors that we don't see. And I think for me, again, when I look at Manchester City, I don't see a hunger and a desire that we did when first Pep Guardiola took over. I see that hunger and desire more in Arsenal than I do at Manchester City. And that's, again, Arteta's gone there, taking over, sent his messaging, done everything his way. And I see basically the start of Manchester City is what we see in Arsenal red right now when Arsenal perform. But I see it being tight. I could maybe see a draw by Villa or maybe another upset and a Villa win.
Wow, well said there. Erling Haaland hat-trick, 4-1 win, says Lee Sweeney. Blah, blah, saying, oh, it's at City. It'll be 1-2 then. I'm not sure what that means. P. Morton, Emery should at least be able to keep them up barely. Just joking, blah, blah. I mean, Michael's wife. No, I think it'll be a Manchester City win. But well said there, Nigel. Very well said, but also very interesting as to what you just said there about the players' mindset and also the community feel about Manchester City and where the players' mindsets will be. Because breaking news came out this morning about the new Super League proposal. Producer Des has put together an awesome piece in our rundown here. A 2022 Sports Management 10-point plan, 80 teams a year across multiple divisions. Top tier teams would have access to 14 extra games per season, solidarity payments of 400 million per year to grassroots, non-participating clubs and social causes, which is obviously tremendously important. But there has been obviously a bit of aggression and an emergency reaction from many people, including Javier Tebas, who we were speaking about previously to coming on air. He said on Twitter, the Super League is the wolf who today disguises himself as a granny to try to fool European football, but his nose and his teeth are very big. 4 divisions in Europe, of course. The top division for them, the founding club, as in the 2019 plan, governance of the clubs, of course, only from the big ones. I mean, in many ways, this is just absolutely mind-blowing. It goes on, the European Club Association, ECA, notes that the latest dispatch from the A22's alternative reality, however, in the real world, this rehashed idea has already been proposed, discussed, and comprehensively rejected by all stakeholders in 2019. This is just another deliberately distorted and misleading attempt to destabilize the constructive work currently taking place between football's real stakeholders to move things forward in the overall best interest of the European club game. JJ, I'll come to you first because obviously you're across this extensively, and we have been following this for a number of years. We've wrote about it so many times, certainly read you write about it a lot. This is not going away, the Super League. And once again, it appears, and in many ways, I think a lot of people will start to take notice as to what is going on here. What is your overall thoughts about the news that broke this morning? Will this go away, and is it real?
Not really surprised, by the news that's broken. Will it go away? I don't think so. I think it's something that will continue to rear its head, every now and then, because ultimately something like this feels inevitable. Perhaps not tomorrow, but, sort of at some point, I don't know, maybe sort of 10, 15 years along the line, it feels like, a competition like this will eventually come into being. Is it a good thing for the game? That is a very, very long conversation to have. I do find it interesting, though, that Tebas is so reactive so quickly. I read some reports as well coming out of Spain that he has essentially banned Barcelona and Real Madrid from the next round of talks regarding the TV deal in Spain and taken away their right to potentially vote on that as well. So obviously he feels that sort of maybe what La Liga is now paying for in terms of, being part of the top 5 leagues in Europe, but being, let's face it, quite a long way behind the Premier League. I think he perhaps feels like that kind of thing might ultimately happen at a Super League level as well, where you have the biggest teams. So taking the example of Real and Barca from La Liga, putting it into the Super League with a couple of clubs, from different countries, where at the end of the day, they'll work out the best deal for them. And it'll leave the others with, little in ways of meaningful football and titles to play for.
I think for me, it's just simple words, Ian. It's greed. It's greed. It's a power struggle between UEFA. No surprise. You look at the clubs who are trying to be the initiative behind it, whether it's Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Juventus. It goes to mismanagement by these clubs themselves, which they don't want to take responsibility for. And also it goes to a lack of desire with working with the league itself to improve the whole league. It's selfish. That's all it is. It's selfish, trying to take football away from the fans. There's so many great words I can use, and there's so many curse words I can use about this whole proposal. And it's funny that Juventus are a team that's in there, because for me, they're a team that was cooking their books to just compete. And again, it goes to, mismanagement and greed. I'm just tired of it, if I'm honest. I think football belongs to the fans. We've seen reactions to it, and I don't think it's going to be dead. I think they're going to keep trying to find a way to do it instead of looking at and taking responsibility about how they run their clubs, how they can make their clubs more marketable, and how they can make their leagues more competitive. And the sad thing is, you look at these clubs that we're talking about, and it's also Real Madrid, Juventus, and Barcelona. Look at Bayern Munich. and the history behind that club. And they've chosen to be no part of this and stay away from this and keep football
It's
for
also a
the
different
fans.
format in German football, though, Nigel, when
It
it
is
comes
a
to the
different-
fans. You said football belongs to the fans. It's a different format in the Bundesliga, so it's much more difficult for clubs in Germany to join something like this.
Yeah, well, I think that's great. I think it does, because they still can compete in their league domestically. And a point that Jonathan made before he came, we talked on the pod, is fans go to games in Germany. They want to experience it. So they say about making experience for the fans better. How about you making the stadiums better in Italy and making it more family friendly? Don't let players be racially abused. All these things play a part in the reason why your league isn't competitive and it isn't competing with other leagues. And it's the jealousy aspect of it. The reality of it is the jealousy aspect of it, and the fact that UEFA has so much money, but UEFA work. The Champions League is not the Champions League now of what we used to witness years ago. You know, it's come with long, hard work, markets. I'm not saying it's right. Maybe the money needs to be distributed better. But for me, when are these clubs going to take responsibility in how they've been running for so long? And it's the cheek from Real Madrid and Barcelona, as we know. They used to negotiate their own TV deal. They took the biggest money because they said we're the biggest clubs. So where's your love and admiration for spreading the wealth to other clubs in La Liga to make it compatible? So that's what I have to say. Just greed and the usual
well said.
Old guys in power who just want to stay in power till their corpses.
Yeah, I think it's just sometimes it's the person who's banging the loudest drum, who sometimes could be seen as the most senile person in the room. Wasn't it a month ago that Tebas was coming out at the Premier League saying they're greedy, they're this, they're that? That's the one time I agree with Tebas in this, that the Super League, man, this is so bad for football if it ever moves forward. I think you can applaud some of the initiatives of social justice and all that, but it doesn't hide the main fact that this is all about money. These are big clubs that do not want to be challenged. They want to get the most money for the least amount of work and least amount of competition. And at the end of the day, this needs to be challenged. It needs to be fought by every single person. Number for you, there were 12 teams in this initial group, 9 of them not to be counted for in this, 3 remaining teams. That says a lot. I hope the remaining teams just keep banging at this drum and then get drowned out, because this cannot happen in football.
Let me just make one more point quickly.
Sorry, Nigel.
Let's talk about the reality of it as well for the fans and the people, right? So these big clubs want to be at the top. It's basically a pyramid scheme. They're going to give some money to the smaller clubs. What happens when these smaller clubs develop great talent, superstar players? The big clubs have more money. They're going to buy it. So they're going to use these little clubs more so as a feeder club to stay on top than to really make it competitive from top to bottom. So it's all absolute BS PR. We can see it from a mile away, and it's just nonsense.
Listen, my 2 cents really are just really off the back of everyone's comments here, because great comments from all of you. I think we all feel and act and think the same when it comes to the beautiful game where we come from, what we like to enjoy watching. When it comes to football, we love lower league football. We love watching youth soccer. We clearly have all worked around and been around youth soccer at some stage in our lives. And it's tremendously important. No matter what, when you look at the big picture of things, the Premier League is running away right now. It is pretty much a Super League in itself. The revenues for television, the players who are playing there, the salaries and the ownership. It's pretty much a Super League. So without the Premier League clubs being involved in this, as far as I'm concerned, there's absolutely no way a Super League can go ahead. You need the Premier Leagues to be involved in this. So, and therefore, you've got to be able to financially push these push these Premier League clubs to be a part of it. Otherwise, you've got no chance. It's not a goal.
Ian, tell them why, though. Tell the people why, Ian. Why without the Premier League it wouldn't work?
Why wouldn't it work without the Premier League?
Clubs, yeah.
Because everybody's going to continue to watch the Premier League, and no one's going to watch.
What did the Premier League do?
Well, as far as what?
They marketed themselves as a league for the world, and they've got players from all over the world. They're open for people to buy clubs from wherever you come from. And that is why the Premier League, without the Premier League clubs, like you said, the Super League is not going to work, because
yes, but Nigel, can we possibly debate whether that's the right way to go forward for the game or not? Because me personally, obviously playing in Germany for 5 years, I see a different structure, and I see a structure that works where almost all of the clubs in the Bundesliga are profitable. I don't say that and see that about other teams in the Premier League.
100%.
Premier League right now are losing millions and essentially billions of dollars, and it's not sustainable except for the fact that they have ownerships who don't care about money, which is okay. okay, because they can go. But what about the other teams? So my opinion is basically the structure needs to be reevaluated. Absolutely. But where is the benefit here? I'm not looking at a Juventus, a Barcelona, and a Real Madrid from just being 400 million a year in excess of playing the same teams over and over again and running away and creating this separate league. No. I want to see a trickle-down effect from what we are seeing. Let's put it into the Premier League, for example. The trickle-down effect from these massive billionaire ownerships coming into huge clubs. Newcastle, for example. Let's see if there's a feed down, a trickle down from what Newcastle do, how they build their teams, how they build their clubs, how they keep the fans inside the stadiums instead of just sitting at home and watching TVs, how they get kids involved, how they structure their youth systems, and how that trickles down to the clubs that are in the local area. I mean, that's what I see in Germany. That's the format I like. And I find it very difficult if you see a Super League going ahead that has any chance of surviving.
I agree with you. I'm a big fan of how the German league is run. I think it's fantastic, not just in the aspect of the clubs, but the fact of they keep fans going into stadium, and also the fact of the diversity in the German league, the players that they have from all over the world. I think if the German league is probably marketed a little bit better, then I think they could be another real powerful league. You already know that Bayern Munich are going to compete domestically and also in the Champions League. But yeah, I think it's great. And I can see two smirks on my colleagues' faces, so I'm just going to shut up right now.
We're just laughing at you, full stop, mate. That was great. Great discussion. I mean, listen, we could have a full show on this discussion. We pretty much did before we came on air as well. And we're going to keep this going at some point throughout the week as we get closer to the Champions League as well, because, pretty much the Super League is already standing and we've got a lot to talk about this one. So let's go to break. Let's come back and we'll look around what's happening in the rest of Europe. You are watching House of Champions. We'll be right back. Don't miss out on any of this Serie A action. Follow some of the biggest stars in the sport, like Olivier Giroud, Rafael Leao, and Lautaro Martinez, as they try to lead their teams to the Scudetto. How will the table change going forward? Which club has the best chance of winning it all? Which clubs have the most to lose? Find out the answers and stream every match from Italy's top soccer league live only on Paramount Plus. Try 1 month free with the promo code Serie A. Welcome back to House of Champions. And apparently, producer Des dropping an iTunes beat from his personal collection right there with that promo. Everybody else was just swinging it around just a little bit there. Nigel, I could see that smile on your face.
I just don't understand the Mariah Carey. I'm sorry.
Oh, don't lie. I bet it's your shower sing-along song.
Yeah, right.
I liked it. I liked it.
Even
I'm not surprised
you as well.
I'm not surprised.
Ian, move on with the show before Nigel starts again.
Vic jumped in straight away and said, nice ad. I appreciate that one right there.
Thank you, Vic.
I love to see it. All right, let's turn our attention and whip around the rest of what's happening in Europe. We start with Serie A. You can watch it exclusively on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports. Juventus against Fiorentina, noon on Sunday. It is 10th against 13th. It's not the game we once or even expected at all. There are a lot of games taking place. Milan, Torino, obviously. Lazio, Atalanta is a good one. Napoli against Cremonese. But I'm looking forward to seeing what Juve do in this game. Vlahovic is finally out. In 23, he's back. He's scoring goals. But this is just not the game, Mike, that we all once knew and loved. It's going to be a different game, a different Juve. But let's not forget they have this 15-point deduction, which is why they're sitting where they are.
Yeah, they're 13 points off a Champions League spot, but they will feel confident because they've gotten results in their last two games. The Lazio game, that was the catapult, and I think that will be the catapult for them to go back up the table. They're doing well in Coppa Italia. I expect them to roll in this game. The partnership between Vlahovic as the striker, and I think it's going to be Di Maria, but also you could play Chiesa as that second striker. They've been playing a 3-5-2, and I think the solidarity of the midfield five and the back three with the Brazilians, they are looking like the Juve that was in second place before the point deductions. Bremer is looking more solid. And I think that the youth movement of Fragioli or Moretti, look for one of them to be in the midfield alongside Rabiot and Locatelli.
I mean, I know that we're talking a lot about Juve, but I just want to put on record how disappointed I am with Fiorentina actually this season. I really thought that they were going to potentially kick on, look to get into the European places, and it's just going pretty disastrously at this moment in time. I mean, 13th, I know there's only 2 points between them and Juve, but that is after the points deduction. And it feels like, I mean, even with the 3 points, from this one for either team, they're still miles off where you'd expect either of them to be. We all know why Juve are so far off the pace now, but that is still a big gap. I mean, if Juve were to win, moves them up to 29. That's still 9 points behind AC, who have dropped to 6th in the last European position. That's still a fairly sizable gap. Juve are going to need to go on a serious tear between now and the end of the season if they're to even get themselves into contention for Europe.
Ian and people listening, I have no interest in Juventus, no interest in Fiorentina right now. The only team that interests me in Serie A is Napoli, because I love the approach and style of play. Go Napoli, let's move on.
I love to see it here. Looking like Juve that can't get their books right too, says P. Morton right there. Does Zlatan have any cartilage in his knees? The peoples want to know. Nigel, you love Mariah Carey. Don't lie about it. That's what Rafa says as well. Nigel's requested. Therefore, we shall. Let's move on. Let's focus a little bit on some of the teams that are coming up, obviously, in the Champions League. We'll focus what's happening in the domestic action ahead of those Champions League fixtures. Monaco PSG, JJ. This is a game that really has my attention now because I'm trying to figure out what PSG are right now, who they are. I mean, what is going on? Messi, Neymar, we all know. I actually would like an update on Mbappe as well, because I don't believe that he's going to be missing for these two ties. However, let me know. But also, is Gautier at all under any pressure with the way that PSG are performing right now?
I mean, I think he's under major pressure now, given the result last night. Like I said at the beginning of the show, that's PSG's first defeat away at Marseille, I believe, since around 2011, 2012. I mean, that's, 10 years plus. It's a long time since Marseille, managed to beat PSG on home soil. As much as it was a great day for Mike, that was a very, very bad day at the office for PSG. And it's, symptomatic of what's happened really since PSG got back off of the World Cup break. It's not been good enough. Yes, they've been missing Mbappe for a couple of games. Mbappe was there when they lost, though, against the likes of Lens, against the likes of Rennes. So, you can't blame all of these struggles on Mbappe being missing. And, PSG have fallen apart since the World Cup. We discussed it before Qatar. Were the likes of Messi and Neymar just getting ready, with that tunnel vision for the World Cup, and now they really couldn't care less what happens for the remainder of the season against PSG? It certainly looks that way when you're looking at what's happening on the pitch at the moment. Monaco, not an easy place to go, especially as, they now have, Europe in their sights, and they absolutely need to get themselves back into contention. Also already out of the Coupe de France as well. I mean, people say all the time, PSG win everything in France, but that's not true. This is going to be the second consecutive year that PSG haven't won the Coupe de France. I mean, yes, they're looking good for the Ligue 1 title at the moment, but there are other teams who have been able to succeed, in their place in the past. So, PSG have taken their eye off the ball in a domestic sense to such a degree now that, were Galtier to fail to lead PSG past Bayern Munich, and whether or not Mbappe is back for those two games, I can't tell you right now, but if he is, he won't feature against Monaco, despite it being his former club. But if Galtier doesn't manage to lead PSG past Bayern Munich, I think we're probably looking at him being replaced by somebody else. I don't know, Zinedine Zidane, somebody else come the summer, because this is not what PSG's leadership thought they were signing up for when they brought in Luis Campos as well as Galtier.
Yeah, they're worrying signs for PSG ahead of this Bayern tie, and I think some of that might be exposed. Ben Yedder, he is the PSG killer of the last few seasons, really coming on strong for Monaco. It's why you're seeing them go up the table. When I watched the Marseille game yesterday, what Marseille did so well, I said it when we did the preview for the Champions League in the matchup against Bayern with PSG. The midfield is my concern for PSG. Their midfield look very vulnerable. Marseille did well to play off the shoulder of Danilo Pereira, who's been playing center back at different times and also defensive midfield. I think if he continues to play really in this vulnerable space of being the lone defensive midfielder, Vitinha pushing higher up more as a box-to-box midfielder, I don't think that's going to give PSG success against Bayern Munich. In this matchup and in really the next month, they have a big month in Ligue 1. They have Monaco. They will play Marseille again in the next few weeks. And I think there's cracks in the pavement for PSG, and I could really see them getting knocked out by Bayern.
Interesting. Well, let's turn our attention to Bayern Munich because obviously they have sort of found their form just a little bit again recently, Nigel. They are scoring goals again. Choupo-Moting finally scoring goals. He's now gone up against his former club in Paris Saint-Germain in the Champions League. But Bayern did look good. They got through in the cup against Mainz. They have been looking very good, scoring goals again. I think the addition of João Cancelo, I don't know if you've watched any of the games, Nigel, but the addition of João Cancelo has brought a real dynamism on the right-hand side that they didn't have with Pavard, who's looked disinterested over the last maybe 6 months or so in a Bayern jersey. So really impressed with what Bayern Munich are doing, but I am not convinced that they can go through against PSG. Now, I know I've been watching PSG too, and they're a team that are very frustrating right now, but Bayern are not necessarily a team that's running away with their domestic table, and certainly not the Bayern of old.
Ian, I've just put the violin away for PSG, and you're trying to get me to bring it back out. I do not have no sympathy for PSG. I love Jonathan Johnson, but I don't. They've gone the wrong way about it since they've taken over. They're trying to buy football. And I'm not going to lie, I'm happy that I'm seeing PSG crash and burn. Bayern Munich, for me, as you've always written them off, Ian, they finished top of their group. They qualified. There's something, you're more of an expert on Bayern Munich than I. But when I watch this Bayern Munich team, especially at Champions League, they turn it to another level. For me, the Champions League is their priority. It's a competition that they're very experienced in. And I see the performances of these players go to another level. Domestically, at times, you probably say that they get very complacent. They can be inconsistent. But the players that they have, for me, is about Champions League. That is, for me, their priority. Cancelo's come in, made it different. He's bringing a breath of fresh air. Pavard has lost interest, like some other players at some of these other top players we've discussed. Cancelo's come in, enthusiasm, new beginning, playing, one of the most intelligent football players that you can see on a football pitch. What he brings defensively and attacking wise. I said it. You guys made fun of me that the goals are being shared at Bayern Munich. You shared. They need a striker. We understand that. They can prepare for that for next season. But the goals are still going around. And I think for me that Bayern Munich, for me, are one of the favorite teams to win this competition. And they finished top of their group. And look at that group that they came top that you didn't even think that they'll get out. Mr. Ian Joy, something not quite right there. So I think you need to direct that there's something not quite there at PSG while I bring out my violin again for feeling sorry for PSG and how they've gone about. You can have all the money in the world. If you don't have a plan, a structure, and a real direction, that's what should happen to you. Crash and burn like PSG.
And credit to the recruiting department for Bayern Munich. One position people talk about is the goalkeeping position. Manuel Neuer gets injured on the lavish ski trip from hell, it turns out to be, and they bring in Sommer, which I think that he could have a big say in this Champions League tie when they go up against PSG. That goalkeeping duel between he and Donnarumma, that will be a talking point. Donnarumma, he kept the game close between OM and PSG. Without it, it could have been absolute humiliation for the team from Paris.
A really good point by Mike, actually, because I did want to sort of touch on the goalkeeping position, not necessarily to talk about Sommer, because obviously he is a good addition and is a very solid performer, so I expect him to fit in seamlessly. But actually, it's what's going on behind the scenes at Bayern that's interesting. Getting rid of the goalkeeping coach while Neuer's out of action, bringing in somebody new. To me, that suggests that suddenly Julian Nagelsmann is getting a sort of a second wind in his time in charge of Bayern and really is actually starting to, properly take control of the situation. So it's going to be very interesting to see how that dynamic develops over the next couple of months.
Oh, great point, JJ. I'm glad someone actually reads up about the Bundesliga at some point because there is something not quite right there. I'm just letting you all know. Bayern Munich, man, I'm telling you, like, even though they got the results, they got the best players in Germany. That's why they're sitting on top of the table in the Bundesliga. This right now in the Champions League will be interesting to see. They have impressed me getting out of the group. This will be a big test because I have no idea where PSG are right now. Some great comments coming in as well. Good morning to my good friend, where is he? Francisco Roca. Good morning, gentlemen. I'm about to enjoy a cup of coffee and listen to some House of Champions. Welcome to you. Blah, blah, saying PSG and Monaco 2-3. PSG are going to win that game. Pritik saying PSG are careless, for God's sake. They're playing Bayern Munich in 5 days. They need to step it up. Oh, yeah, they do. PSG of last year, the LeBron Miami Heat of football. Love that comment right there from P. Morton as well. Okay, let's rattle through it pretty quickly. Next week, it's a great game to look forward to. It is, of course, Spurs traveling to Milan against AC Milan. This week coming up is AC Milan against Torino, Leicester City against Spurs. I'm going to have you, Nigel, just touch real quickly on Spurs. And then, Mike, I'm going to have you touch upon AC Milan, who are in shambles right now against Torino. That game's coming up on Friday. NRC, go.
Spurs should win that game. Obviously, they have the ability to be a box of chocolate like Forrest Gump. You never know which one you're going to get. But I think Spurs should win that game because Milan have been absolutely dreadful. The wheels have completely come off at AC Milan, and I have no idea what is going on at that club. And Zlatan definitely will not be a savior or a god, as people seem to have him up at times. And Spurs should win that game.
Yeah, I'm intrigued to see this Milan matchup because what you see from them in this game against Torino will tell you a lot about what to expect when they go up against Tottenham. It's gone all wrong. I think defensively is where it's where them. The elder statesman, Giroud, looking like an old man since coming back from the World Cup in this skid that they have. Simon Kjaer, not looking like the player of old that was the captain of the Danish national team and performed well prior to the World Cup. He's had some injuries this season. Last season, much better for Milan. For them, they need to get back to basics. For as many goals as they scored last year and have this year, it's being better defensively. It's being more compact and hitting on the counter. You haven't seen that of late. And I think the first game where they lost battered by Inter Milan, that dented their confidence, and they've been struggling to find themselves. If they get a result this weekend, they'll be more competitive against Tottenham.
Chelsea are on the road against West Ham, and Werder Bremen are at home to Borussia Dortmund. Dortmund going up against Chelsea next week, the Christian Pulisic game. Oh, yeah, we're looking forward to it. JJ, you got both of these games here. What are you expecting from Chelsea? And Borussia Dortmund, they welcome back Aller. He's back scoring goals again. Jude Bellingham scored again. Well, not he scored. He assisted yesterday in the cup game. He is, in my opinion, going to be the largest departure from the Bundesliga as far as the transfer goes this summer.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems like we've been discussing this for the last couple of months, and it's almost reached a point where it's going to be inevitable. I mean, I'm happy to see that Dortmund have kind of made their way back into something resembling title contention. Obviously, like snapping at the heels now of Union Berlin, who are doing well to keep pace with Bayern. It just feels like what might have been for Dortmund if they could have picked up a few more points earlier in the season. But like you said, Aller, his loss for the first half of the season, very, very unfortunate. Great to see him back on the pitch now and performing. It just feels like Dortmund at this moment in time are, in the ascendancy, whereas Chelsea are really, struggling to get any good result that they can. And West Ham, a West Ham team fighting to avoid, being part of the relegation battle at the end of the season. It's not the easiest, place to go, especially when you're still working out exactly who you are, trying to look for some identity. So I can see it being a tough weekend for Chelsea, but I think Dortmund will warm up with a win.
I'm not sure about that defense, though, JJ. I'm worried about Dortmund's defense, and I'm worried full stop about Chelsea and what's happening right now.
Ian, quickly before you go, you're worried about Dortmund's defense.
Have you seen
Chelsea's going to score goals? Have you seen Chelsea's attack?
Have you seen Dortmund? Have you seen
killing you with feathers? That's what Chelsea's attack's doing.
Hold on a sec, Nige. Have you seen the last couple of Dortmund matches?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Dortmund, Nigel, if you put on your boots right now, you'd be faster than Mats Hummels. I promise you that much.
So Ian, I'm so glad you said that. The last match, one of the last matches against Freiburg down a man. Some of the goals they gave up, missed tackles, pinballing off each other, guys jumping out of the way. I mean, the Chelsea Youth Academy could put a hat trick with that sort of defending.
Okay.
I mean,
sounds like your average MLS game.
Oh, I'm staying out of that. Staying out of that one.
On that note, Ian, you can take us out, please.
Speaking of which, congratulations, Nigel, being a part of the MLS crew going forward. Looking forward to listening to you and your comments. And please make sure you bring up that comment from JJ as well when you're sitting at the desk on that first match day. Nigel, real quickly, we have Club Brugge taking ahead Benfica. They have big games coming up this weekend. Union Saint-Gilloise, and then also Sporting Braga against Benfica this weekend coming up. Is going to be an absolute cracker. I think that's a cup game as well. Braga trying to put a little bit of payback after a hammering from Benfica recently. I'm only joking, Nigel. I'm not coming to you for a little review on that one now. But just a big shout out to all of our Benfica fans out there. We're going to get deep in depth into Benfica next week. We can't wait for these ties coming up. And a reminder to everybody that we will be back on Monday with a massive preview as we finally start to pick it up for the Champions League. And don't forget, you can watch all the games on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports as we go through the round of 16. The build-up, the prep, you're in the right place for it with the House of Champions as we get you set for the pre-game show and the post-game show, but also the game coverage on CBS Sports and Paramount Plus. It is going to be absolutely fantastic. We can't wait for it. Nigel, I am coming to you with our final thoughts because Ronaldinho's son, João Mendes says, set to John Barcelona. WTF was my words that I wrote down here. What is going on? I mean, first and foremost, Ronaldinho, he's a bit all over the place right now. I've no idea what's going on in his private life. But his son joining Barcelona, maybe because they can't afford anybody else right now. What's up there?
Hey, he's a club legend. I'm sure that's just been done through. Like most of the people that I know who play the professional football, who live in Manchester, doesn't matter what level you played at, as long as you played, Manchester City are trying to sign all your kids. So no surprise. Good luck to his son. That's a big burden to carry, that Ronaldinho name. But yeah, good luck to him.
ML.
Hey, Nigel said it all, man. It's the next generation of golden stars of the past getting favors from their dad, apparently.
JJ's smiling. He can't wait to jump in here. Come on, JJ, what you got?
Yeah, as Des mentioned in the chat, they got the mum who's supposedly a ballerina as well. So you can imagine what the footwork's going to be like. At least still be amazing when it comes to keepy uppies and doing some crazy skills. But yeah, it will be. It will be interesting to see if he ever gets anywhere close to the first team, because you see a lot of these gambles that just it's sort of a where are they now in a couple of years' time.
Forget that. I just want to know how Ronaldinho bagged a ballerina, mate. That's all I'm interested in.
Have you seen him dance on the ball? Have you seen him dance on the ball?
Hey, come on, lad. Hey, he must have been taking ballet lessons.
I'll tell you what. There's a reason why he loves coming back to Paris. His nights out on the town go down in PSG legend.
We got to get out of here. We got so many shout outs and we've hit the 50-minute mark here, which is absolutely ridiculous for our show. We were only planning for 30 minutes. We've gone to 50 minutes because we love each other so much here. We do have Amy jumping in the comments here, Nigel, real quickly. A CBS soccer podcast, is Chelsea going to start Kepa or Mendy as the goalkeeper against West Ham? Thanks in advance and good morning in the USA. Amy, big shout out to you as well. We're running out of time. So Nigel, who starts real quickly?
I'm thinking he's going to start Kepa.
All right, thanks very much. And thanks to everybody out there for tuning into House of Champions. Thank you to also listening to House of Champions. Please take a minute to leave us a rating and a review on your favorite podcast platform. We're available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, and anywhere else you listen to your podcast. We're also available as video, so subscribe to us on YouTube. For everybody out there who enjoys a 40-minute run or a 40-minute workout, we apologize. 50 minutes today we went. So if you enjoy a good 50 minutes, which is normally a first half in a soccer game right now with the ridiculous stoppage time that they add now, I hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks to everybody out there. Please, a reminder to everybody, we're back on Monday. The Champions League is back. You can catch all the games, all the coverage, the pre-game build-up, and the live action on Paramount Plus and CBS Sports. But House of Champions, we will be all across all of the games for you, getting you ready for these big games in the weekend. But make sure you enjoy all the domestic football this weekend. Nigel Rio Coker, Michael Hood, Jonathan Johnson over in Paris. I mean, Joy signing out. House of Champions. We'll see you next time.